Hello, everybody. For my Reasoning in Social Sciences project this semester, I decided to focus on Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Exposition speech. Now, Booker T. Washington gave this speech in 1895 during a very critical time in history. He's addressing a very serious topic at the time, and that is the role and treatment of Black people in society at the time. Now, this speech takes place 30 years post Civil War and the Reconstruction era, and it's after a time where the Black population may have been freed, yet they still had very few rights to little rights and still were not treated as equals in society. So, what exactly is he talking about? He states that Black people holding political leadership, uh, political leadership and political jobs immediately after the Civil War was a huge mistake and happened way too fast. He believes that the Black population should instead focus on industrial education and have vocational jobs in society that will let them contribute to the country and economy and allow them to accumulate some wealth for themselves. He also proposes a controversial idea, and he states that his people should give up on demanding civil rights at the time and instead focus on, like I said, these vocational jobs and industrial education. Through the process of focusing on these jobs, he hopes that Black people will eventually earn uh, the respect from other communities and earn their citizenship in America. He also uses an analogy in the speech, and the analogy is that there are two ships. One of them is distressed, and the distressed ship calls for aid, and the friendly ship says, "quote Cast down your bucket where you are," end quote. And he suggests that Black people should cast down their bucket where they're at and accept the quote unquote lower quality jobs in society to begin with. Now, this speech really gave me a much better understanding of the era and how different leaders viewed justice and progression, such as the differences between Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, I knew much about Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X from my time learning about them in middle and high school, but not much of early leaders like Washington and Du Bois. After reading the speech, I went back and reread and listened to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech to compare and contrast their different viewpoints and the different times since MLK's speech was about 70 years after Booker T. Washington's. And this is in a grand idea, grand perspective, uh, helps me better understand how long this process really took. Slavery was here for over 200 years. The speech takes place 30 years after the Civil War, 70-ish years before the Civil Rights Movement. So it really just shows how long this fight took and is actually still, occurring. Because this is definitely still relevant in the year 2022. We saw 2 years ago in 2020 the civil rights protests around the world, not just in America, but literally around the world after George Floyd's death. And there is still huge fights for voting rights in the South, especially from Stacey Abrams and her bid to become Georgia's governor. She has founded the Fair Fight Foundation, which is a national voting rights organization aimed for furthering voting rights amongst the Black community. Also, I thought about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which is named after the late Georgia representative. And this Voting Rights Act would reinstate a lot of the parts of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And this was actually passed by the House of Representatives in August 2021, but has failed to receive the 60 necessary votes in the Senate twice. So it is not yet an actual law, unfortunately. And I can just only hope that in the coming decades or even sooner, the wishes of these extraordinary people are no longer simply wishes or fantasies, but rather a reality for every American to experience. Thank you.